that a little better? There we go. All right. You can see and hear me, right? Put that down in there. All right. So the first thing I want to do today is, last week we talked about pretending to be movie consultants. Really, basically what we've been doing is kind of going into the Bible, looking at certain characters, talking about what we can gather from the Bible, from what we know about the stories, about what those characters are like. And then, we're going to tie some of that back to Jesus too today. We're going to be talking about another character. But before we get started, it's quiz time, okay? So get ready. If you were here last week, I have a few questions for you. We'll kind of review what we covered. So Nicodemus last week, put this sideways so hopefully you can see a little better. What is the only book that mentions him? John. Yep. How many times does he show up in the book of John? How many stories are there? 3. Yep, 3. There's actually 3. So you're close. Describe those instances. So do you remember? So these are getting harder, right? So what are the 3? Do you remember what they were? When he went to see Jesus at night, I heard that. The Sanhedrin, yep. So he's, yep, gets Jesus' body. So I didn't hear rebirth. Yep, when he's talking to him in John 3. Yep, absolutely. So he went to see him at night. Talks to him, and he's amazed about how can a man be born again. And then when he kind of defends him a little bit in front of the Sanhedrin, he's saying, we need to question him, right? We need to do that first. So he says that, and then also he goes and gets Jesus' body. And that was kind of the last question I had. Who did he go to get Jesus' body with? You remember the other guy? Arimathea. Joseph of Arimathea. Yeah, you guys did great. Congratulations, 100%. So we kind of talked about, I tried to capture these best I could. I'm sure I forgot some of them, but, we talked a little bit about what Nicodemus, what we think he's like from what we gathered from the few stories we had. We know he's a member of the Sanhedrin, so he's a leader, he's a teacher. He did seek knowledge. We talked about how he's wealthy. He had 75 pounds of the material they brought to put on Jesus' body, which was not a small amount. That was very expensive. We saw him as, being brave, taking a risk. So he actually went to Jesus and talked to him, where there was others that may have not been willing to take that risk, and he did. He knew the Torah. He asked questions, right? He was a listener. He seemed to be genuine and a follower of Jesus, okay? We also talked about how some people kind of see him as someone that might have been tortured a little bit in the idea that he believed in Jesus, but yet he also was part of the Sanhedrin. So here he is, and the people that are very upset with Jesus, wanting to kill him, and yet he, is listening to Jesus, and part of, so that's kind of hard. Like, how did he deal with that? That certainly wasn't easy for him to do that. So this week, we're going to cover Peter. Now, Peter's kind of on the other end of the spectrum as far as number of stories. Last week it was easy. We had 3 things we read together. We looked at them. We dove in. I looked up how many times does Peter come up, just the word Peter or Simon Peter, a reference to him in the Gospels, and I think it said over 200. So, which was, I knew he came up a lot, but that was shocking. His name does get mentioned a lot. I'm not going to talk super fast today and cover 200 references to Peter. I promise not to do that. But since we already had one quiz, this is going to be a rough week for you. We're going to have a second quiz. So instead of, first of all, going and looking at kind of a list of the things that Peter was in the Bible and involved in, I wanted to start with, first of all, and that's why I got the whiteboard, and unfortunately I couldn't erase half of it, so I'll try to use the top half of it. But we'll have you guys kind of throw out what are the stories you remember that are in the Gospels about Peter, and let's see how well of a list we can do in this class. I don't know how much Bible knowledge we have in here, but I would say if we added up all the years we've been in Bible class, there's got to be a few hundred, right? At least. So I know we're going to come up with a good list. And then just like trivia night, I'll be watching. Don't use your phones, all right? So let me turn this around. So when you think about stories about Peter in the Gospels, what stories come to mind? Denied Jesus, yep. Yep, 3 times. What else do we have? Walked on water, what else? Oh, that one too, yeah. Yep. Yeah, that was even, we know that from the story of his calling, right? He was fishing. Yeah. With Andrew. Yeah. So the transfiguration, right? He was there and offered to make tabernacles. All right. Very good. What else do you remember? Remember about Peter?
Very human.
Very human? What do you mean by very human? What?
He was like all the rest of us. He thought he could do more than he really could.
Okay.
He fell asleep while Jesus was praying.
He's human.
I'm happy I'm not the only one who makes mistakes.
Right. Yep. And we're going to get to exactly what you mentioned there. It's going to show up time and time again. He fell asleep. He went to Gethsemane. He fell asleep with the others. What other examples do you have, Jim?
He was impulsive.
Impulsive? Yep. I'll hit on that.
He also joined in with the Jews in something that's not right.
Right. So are you thinking about
When Paul had to set him straight.
Yep. So yeah, he was sent to minister to the Gentiles, right? And then Paul had to, I'll just put it like that, Paul set him straight.
How much all of the early church depended on Peter? If they had a question there to call back to Jerusalem, they'd get the 800 number and call to Peter.
Yeah, I'd even put that down as he's a leader, right? You see that throughout. The early church as well as even among the apostles.
He was married and had a mother-in-law.
Yep, so he's married. You guys are doing great. Because I'm going to have a list up here of things that happen, and you guys are knocking them off. I think you'll get most of them. Yeah, so I'll put up there as he's part of the inner circle, right? He shows up a lot more with conversations with Jesus and being involved. Yeah.
He didn't want to let Jesus wash his feet.
Yeah, there's another one. What did he say? When Jesus told him, he says, well, you can't be a part of me if you don't allow me to wash your feet. And then what's Peter say? Yeah, give me a bath, right? What other stories? I got a little bit of space left. Can you fill it up? Cornelius? Yep, so he went to Cornelius. He was called. He had the dream, right? The vision. All right. I'm not going to put that one up on the board. That was good. Yes, thank you. Because I did come across that. You search different things on Peter, and it's like that comes up to the top. He's the first pope. What else? Anything else? I'm even trying to rack my brain on what else I had on the list. So that's a really good list. I mean, you got a lot of the things about Peter. So I think when we talk about, and even some of the things about his character came up, which we'll talk a little bit about. So let's check the list I had up here. And this isn't everything, but I had so much, right? I tried to pull out the main ones for the first slide. And then we're going to talk about some of the ones that are a little bit, I wouldn't have remembered that he was somewhat involved in. So, of course, famous story we hear, it's not only Peter, but Peter, Andrew, James, and John. It's the calling, right? So how he was out fishing, and Jesus told him to throw the net overboard. He got walks on water. The confession, you are the Christ. We had that up there, right? We had that. And then also his rebuke. The transfiguration, we talked about that. So you got that. Don't wash my feet, that one. Give me a bath. And him saying, I'll never deny you. Sleeping in Gethsemane, got that one, denial. And then the feed my sheep, you also got that reference, brought that up. And then also part of that, there's a conversation about the future, because if you remember, Jesus is talking to Peter, and Peter looks behind him, and there's John, and he asks him about, what's going to happen to that disciple. And it talks about how some people believe that John wasn't going to die, but Jesus says, what's that anything to do with you? Don't worry about that. Obviously, John eventually dies. So what I wanted to do was just very quickly, let me see if I can go back. Let's read Matthew 4, 18 through 20, because I have a video up here. We're going to look at a scene of Peter's calling. Okay, so him throwing the net overboard and getting the fish. Let's see if I have my... Oh no, I have left my phone somewhere. Is it over there? Yes. You have evidence of me leaving stuff behind. Okay. Matthew 4:18. Second to get there. And then I'll ask if, does anybody want to read that? Anyone? Yep. Oh, I got Marshall beat you. Okay, thank you. So another version talks about how Peter got down on his knees in front of Christ, saying he's a sinful man. So what we're going to do is we're going to watch this video of that. There's a little bit more to this because it starts out at the beginning. They're fishing at night, so you get to see them fishing at night. In this particular story, I'll tell you a little bit of the backstory that's not in the Bible, but they added it here for drama, just so you understand. There's a couple comments in there. You're like, why do they say that? In this particular case, he's out fishing at night, but apparently he's out fishing at night. Part of the reason is because he owes taxes. And he's behind on his taxes. Apparently he's so far behind, he was told the soldiers are coming in the morning to get him. So you'll hear a couple comments about that, like you'll wonder, why is he in such a hurry to get back home and see his wife? Well, it's because the soldiers are going to come and get him. And that's where they add that tension and drama to it. And that's why he's even so ecstatic that he catches a fish, because he's out there at his last chance to catch some fish and to be able to sell off his taxes. Of course, we don't know any of that. That's made up for the story. We just know he's been fishing all night, and all of a sudden he comes in, and after catching nothing, his boat gets filled, right? Both boats get filled. So we'll watch that story. That so you can see.
Andrew? James and John, I presume. And who brought the old man?
I heard you need a real fisherman. Well, there are only so many hours in the night, huh? Let's fish.
Zeb! Come around.
Sometimes the sea, best all of us. It's like your night.
Simon, it's him.
Excuse me.
That's him, Simon. That's him.
No time for this, Andrew.
It's him. Simon, it's the man. John said he's here right now.
May I ask a favor? I'm teaching these people, and apparently they're having trouble hearing me. If I could stand on your boat, that would be helpful.
They're having trouble hearing you, huh?
Yes, yes, of course. Please, please, stand on our boat. Thank you.
I need to go. I'm sorry. No time for this today.
Stay a few moments longer. I have something for you.
For me? I'm in a hurry.
Yes, I know. Just allow me a few moments. I'm Jesus. Thanks for this.
Simon.
In my last moments with you, I want to share another story. Because I'm on this boat, my final parable should be about fishing, yes? Simon, please send me that net. This net gathers fish, all kinds of fish, yes?
Yes.
All kinds of fish. And the kingdom of heaven is like what happens next. After the net is full, Simon and the others draw it to the shore, sit down, and sort out the fish. The good fish go into the barrels, and the bad fish thrown away. So it will be at the end of the age. Angels will come and separate the evil from the righteous and throw them into a fiery furnace. Do you understand? These parables I tell make sense to some, not to others. Be patient. That is all for today. I have some business to attend to with my new friend. Put that down for a catch. A little farther out.
I don't have a quarrel with you, teacher. But we've been doing this all night. Nothing. All right. At your word.
I told you. I told you. I told you.
The boat, it's still
Get out! You need to get out!
my brother and the baptizer. You are the Lamb of God, yes?
I am.
Depart from me. I am a sinful man. You don't know who I am and the things I've done.
Don't be afraid, Simon.
I'm sorry. We've waited for you for so long, we believe. But my faith, I'm sorry.
Lift up your head, fisherman.
What do you want from me? Anything you ask, I will do.
Follow me. Fish are nothing. You have much bigger things ahead of you, Simon, son of Jonah. Did you understand that parable I told earlier? From now on, I will make you fishers of men. And you are to gather as many as possible, all kinds. I will sort them out later.
I think we must have dead battery. You think? I'll just talk loudly. Oh, there we go. What did you think of the show we just watched? A part of it was good. Good things about it. Bad things. Liked. Didn't like. What did you think? I got some thumbs up. It's okay. Did you watch some of it? Yeah. It's definitely. They having more time. They try to build in a little bit more to help you see some things that maybe you hadn't thought about before. I mean, I like this. One thing I liked about this was the level of excitement. That they had been fishing all night, and sometimes I forget about how excited and amazing it would have been to them to get a catch like that. All night they've got nothing. All of a sudden their boat's filled. Just the amazement that they had on their face. And this. So you see, that inner circle concept again. There's another instance where Jesus is talking about Jerusalem, how no stone is going to be left standing. And when they describe that, they're actually sitting across from the Mount of Olives, and it says that it's Peter, Andrew, James, and John. There's the four of them that happen to be sitting there listening to him say that. So once again, you get those four kind of together, sitting with Jesus, talking about this, so that kind of inner circle thing. Luke 8, do you remember the story where Jesus asks, "Who touched me?" Peter's the one that answers that. He says, "Jesus, how could we know? The crowds are so vast. We don't know, who touched you." There's another one where Jesus is telling the story about the thief coming in the night. The Son of Man is going to be like a thief that comes in the night. And Peter, pipes up and he asks, "So are you telling this parable for us, or are you telling it for everyone?" Peter's the one that asks the question. There's another time where Peter says, "We left our homes for you," making that admission. And then also in, I think it's in John 6, where a lot of the crowds are following Jesus. And then Jesus says, starts to say, "Unless you eat my flesh and drink my blood, you won't have a part with me." And he starts teaching things that the crowds are like, "We don't like this so much. We're out of here now." And Jesus turns around and looks at the apostles and he asks them, "Well, what about you? Are you going to leave me too?" And Peter's the one that says, "Where could we go? You're the one with the words of life." So this is once again Peter speaking up. So a couple more examples. You had this one, the mother-in-law is healed. So Peter was married, had a mother-in-law. When they go into town, Jesus looks at Peter, and I believe it is John, and tells them to go get the Last Supper prepared. So you see them, him being picked to do that. Another one I wanted to read was from Luke 22, 31 to 34. You got it? Yep, if you would, Wally, give me a minute though. I want to jump there. Luke 22. So this is during the around the Last Supper. You see your heading there? Okay. All right. Thank you, Wally, if you would.
And the Lord said, "Simon, Simon, indeed, Satan has asked for you, that he may sift you as wheat. But I have prayed for you, that your faith should not fail. And when you have returned to me, strengthen your brethren." But he said to him, "Lord, I am ready to go with you, both to prison and to death." Then he said, "I tell you, Peter, the rooster shall not crow this day before you will deny me. This day before you will deny 3 times that you know me."
Okay. So I like this one because he's, there with the other apostles, but then he looks right at Peter and he says, "Simon, Simon, Satan's asked to shift you, but I have prayed for you that your faith may not fail, and when you have turned back, you're going to strengthen your brothers." So, he's looking at Peter, hard times are ahead, but I need you to strengthen your brothers, okay? And then lastly, I had up there the cutting the soldier's ear off. So we've kind of gone through, I'm going to skip this one if I can. Yep. It's another video. We're getting close to time. So what are the characteristics of Peter? We'll get my pen. You guys already captured some of them. But when we think about Peter, what are some of the things that come up? I heard impulsive, right? What's that? 100% human, yes. That's certainly something we learn about Jesus through Peter. Peter fails and he sins, right? And he doesn't just do it once. There's multiple times he fails, and we get to see it. But Jesus is still right there accepting him and encouraging him forward. He's human, impulsive.
I always think that it has ADD
Maybe,
because he is so impulsive.
yeah. He's always, I don't know, like I try to think, Bethany, you're a teacher, I try to think of the kid in the class that's always the one that talks, always is the first one to say something. And I don't think of Peter in a bad way, like annoying necessarily, but he's the one to ask the question that I almost wish I would have asked, or I was thinking in my head and he asks it. So I wonder sometimes if Peter's that guy that, you know, he asked a question, and like, yeah, I'm glad he asked that.
I think of Peter as a boss.
The boss, yeah.
Fisherman, he was a guide for the fishing crew.
Yep.
You know, he gave the simple command.
Mm-hmm.
He was a fellow that was dependable,
Right.
you know, except one time.
Yeah.
At one time, he did do something.
Yeah. Well, I like that. Like, he's a leader. Maybe he was a boss. Maybe where did this leader come from? Maybe he had been. Maybe that was his character up to that point, that he was, you know, a leader even among the fishermen that he was part of. So I've got. He's human. He's impulsive. He likes to ask questions. He's also a follower. Yes.
You know, in some ways, he's a lot like David.
Mm-hmm. In what ways?
David made a lot of mistakes too.
Right. Yeah. But it doesn't, you know, I wish Jeff was here because I know Jeff likes to preach on Peter, and he also taught like the teens about Peter, and I think like one of the things he brings up a lot too is about, you know, making the comparison between Peter and Judas. You know, Peter made mistakes, Judas made mistakes, but what do you do after you make those mistakes? Peter's another example, like David, I think. You make mistakes, you repent, you move forward, you try to be better and stronger than you were before with Christ's help, right? So, absolutely. Right. All in. I like it. Because you certainly see, you know, I kind of like how they showed it in the show. You don't necessarily get this scene, but you kind of think it. You know, Peter says, he told me I'd be fishers of men. I don't even know what that means. And then you fast forward to Acts 2:38, you know, in the first sermon, and Peter, it seems like he's kind of got it, right? He's up there, he's preaching, 3,000 are converted. So you got a guy who seems a little bit clueless along the way, as well as the rest of the apostles. And then the Holy Spirit comes, Acts chapter 2, and, you know, he's got it. He's definitely a person that once he gets it, he's all in. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right. Right. Yep. And it goes back to him. I think sometimes there's cases where it seems like he starts really strong. Like, you know, Jesus, you are the Christ. And then a little bit later he's getting rebuked for saying, you can't go to the cross. Another example is he's called to work with the Gentiles. And then later on he's kind of edging away from the Gentiles. So I think there's a few examples of that where you see him come on strong and then he kind of gets rebuked a little bit or something happens. Like the Transfiguration is another example. He says, you want me to build a tabernacle for, he actually says that way, I want to build a tabernacle for you three. And then you hear the sound from heaven and they're all scared. So there's these times when he speaks up and it doesn't seem to ever stop him, right? He continues to be that way. That's who he is. Foot in the mouth a lot. Yeah, I think so. Oh, is there? Does it have a big mouth? Is that why? Do you know why? Oh, it's delicious. I've never even heard of it. No. I did chuckle when I was going through all the times when Peter showed up. There's one where they're laying at the table for the Last Supper, and Jesus mentions something about being betrayed. And Peter actually leans over to John and says, why didn't you ask him about what he means? And I thought that was funny because I was like, Peter showed a little restraint. There's one time he didn't ask the question. Probably because John was next to Jesus is my assumption, and he wanted it to be a little bit quieter of a question. But it did make me chuckle as I was going through example and example again of Peter just kind of asking the question and jumping in there. So thank you all for your comments on Peter. I'm glad we had a good discussion. We covered a lot today with Peter. Next week we'll have one or two more. So thank you all. Appreciate it. Christ never gave up on him. That's absolutely. If you ever think is Christ going to give up on you? No. You got a great example, of Christ stayed with him, and Peter just kept picking himself back up.